Hi, and welcome to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast with everyone's favorite OBGYN, Dr. Angela Jones. Have you ever been too embarrassed or shy to ask your own doctor about your, girl parts? Well, you've come to the right place to get straight answers. Feel free to ask Dr. Angela anything women's health related. Obstetrics and gynecology? She keeps it real. Pregnancy? She's been there, done that. Menopause? She'll get you through. Young or old, Dr. Angela's got you covered, girl. Now, here's Dr. Angela.
What's good, people? This is Dr. Angela, everyone's favorite OBGYN, and I would like to officially welcome you to episode number 340 of the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. And today we have our esteemed guest, Jenny Stigmas. Am I pronouncing your last name?
Sorry.
I just jacked that up. Simus.
Sorry.
Jennifer Simus. But you go by Jenny.
Everyone
right?
does it.
You go by Jenny?
Yep.
Is that cool?
Jenny. Yep.
Perfect. So the reason that this podcast is so special is that it is kicking off our Menopause series. I'm doing a whole series of podcasts, and I literally have at least 15, 20 guests lined up to talk about almost every aspect of menopause imaginable. And so today, I have the pleasure of having Jenny on the podcast because she is the intimacy ally. She is a board certified intimacy and sex coach. She is a workshop facilitator. And one of the things that I encounter on a pretty regular basis when it comes to women that have transitioned, between perimenopause, menopause, and are now postmenopausal is intimacy, sex, and the impact that being in this phase of your life has on all of that. So first of all, Jenny, I want to say thank you so much for your patience because let's just keep it real. We have tried to do this on a couple of different occasions and it has not worked out for whatever reason, but I'm thrilled to have you as the first guest to kick off this really, really, really important topic. And one of the main reasons I wanted to do this series is because we just are not talking enough about menopause.
Right.
And
right.
everything that's associated with it. And it's like baffling to me.
And we don't learn it. We don't learn it
Yeah.
growing up. It's one of those things that you don't talk about. It's one of those things that your mom and your grandma and your aunt and your cousins, they don't tell you about this. They might tell you about childbirth. They might tell you about like your first time and things like that. But this does not get mentioned. And especially for me, it was the perimenopause part that I never had any education in that. Never until I went to get my certification in becoming a sexual wellness professional. And it's oddly timed that it's right around when I was hitting it myself. So that has been an interesting thrill ride. And also, I just wanted to say, I know that we didn't get to do this the first couple of times that we tried, but I think that there was a reason. I think there was purpose behind that from the universe because it gave me some more time to go through perimenopause and to actually meet with some women all of last summer who were experiencing these same things. So now I have a lot more to tell you. So there was a reason for it.
Let's do this. First of all, I'm going to just define perimenopause.
Okay.
And then I would love to hear about your experience and hear about some of the stories that women are bringing to you. And certainly I'm going to chime in with things that I see as an OBGYN and things that I hear about on a regular basis. Not only that, but I'm going to share my own experience, which is pretty laughable given my knowledge about all of this.
Right.
Okay. So just by definition, perimenopause is the time that's leading up to menopause. Perimenopause typically occurs in mid to late 40s, and it's characterized by your ovarian function starting to wax and wane. What you need to know about your ovaries is that your ovaries are responsible for secreting various hormones in your body. In women, predominantly estrogen and progesterone, but they are also the major producer of testosterone, but that's a whole nother story. So when you're perimenopausal, your periods might start doing all kinds of wonky things. You might get multiple periods a month. Sometimes you might get spotting in between periods. Sometimes they're really heavy. Sometimes they're pretty light. Sometimes you can skip months at a time without getting them. You may start noticing, you know, more mood lability, maybe some hot flashes, night sweats. It's all over the place. Kind of anything goes. But you're right. Nobody is talking about this. It just happens, and women are like, doo doo doo. Is this
Right.
normal? Is this not
Mhm.
normal? What's going on?
Right. And from my perspective, like, I'm so glad that you defined it because uh, I really did think that all of the changes associated with menopause were menopause. But when you say menopause, like if you're
Hmm.
talking to one of your patients,
Hmm.
are you saying like when the menses pause, like when your period stops?
Yes. So we'll touch base on that. So
Okay.
menopause is one day in your life.
Okay.
It's that day when you have gone a whole year without a period.
Okay.
That's menopause.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day after you've gone a whole year without a period, that's postmenopause.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Okay.
we just defined three very specific things:
Yes.
perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause.
Right.
I'm gonna date myself a little bit here. Am postmenopause.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
where I am in this in this journey.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's where a lot of people are when they start to realize that they can actually talk about it.
Yes,
I think it's just one of those things that we're just like societally expected to just get through and not discuss. And I hate that.
I hate
So
that too. So
I
let's talk
want it to
about it.
change. Yeah. I'm so glad that you're doing this because I want it to change. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump off where
Sure,
I first started having any kind of idea about it.
sure.
So I had started dating my fiance, and if you know anything about me, you know that my fiance is 16 years younger than me, and he's as sexually interested as that entails. So we were having an awful lot of sex when we first started dating, and I missed a period and thought, oh my God, I'm pregnant with this new guy that I just started dating after not, dating anyone
Right,
for
right.
over a decade because I was divorced. So, I missed the period. I was crying uncontrollably at things, happy and sad. Um, I put on some weight like
Mhm.
immediately, and my emotions were just very out of whack.
Yeah.
So yeah, to me, as a mom of two, that meant pregnant. So I immediately was like, okay, here's the deal, man. Sorry, but I might be pregnant. I'm not really sure. Da 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 da. Da. And he was like, all right, okay, it sucks, but all right, yeah, we'll just let's see. And I was like, because it's a little early to test, but
Okay.
let's see. And so then I took a test and it was negative. So I was like, well, what the heck is going on? And that's when I started researching.
Okay.
And that is how I found out about perimenopause
Sure.
and how all of those things play into it. Am
Hmm.
I wrong?
No.
I mean, so
No.
yeah. So then flash forward about a year. We're still together, obviously, because we're getting married pretty soon.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
He's awesome. And obviously he's awesome. He stuck by me through all this madness. But yeah, so flash forward about a year, and I've come to terms with like, all right, my period's gonna be a little weird.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's gonna come twice in a month,
Hmm.
sometimes it's not gonna come that month. I do feel bloated an awful lot. And I am very emotional. I am now that woman that cries at a Hallmark commercial. Yes, that has occurred. I thought it was weird before, but now I understand it.
You understand.
Yes. And my psychiatrist had tried to put me on a mood stabilizer to deal with
Sure.
these, mood swings,
Yeah.
legit mood swings. Watch out for that. Watch out for that, everybody. I was on gabapentin and I completely lost feeling in my clitoris within a week because your clitoris is a ball of nerves. and you're
You
on
don't, you
a
don't say.
nerve. I know, but you're on a nerve inducing or a nerve ending reducing medication. So it was the first thing for me to go. And I got off of that medicine very fast. And I was like, I
Ask
will
you
deal
this.
with the mood swings.
When you were going through this,
Hmm.
did you talk to your OBGYN? I'm just curious.
So I did, but here's the response that I got. And I actually have a new OBGYN, so I wonder what she's going to say. But I was with one who I think was not very receptive to what I was saying.
Okay.
Also, I have factor V Leiden clotting disorder.
Okay.
So anything that I asked for in the way of hormone therapy
Mm-hmm.
was like a moot point.
Sure.
Is that pretty standard?
Well, you can't do estrogen.
Right. Right. That was
Yeah.
what was my understanding. And pretty much everything that they had was estrogen,
Yeah. I
as
mean,
far as I could tell.
sometimes, we can try to use progesterone to temper some of those symptoms, and you certainly would have been a candidate for that. But
Hmm. Right.
I'm sorry you didn't feel heard.
Yeah, it was a lot. So, and it actually got worse after that. Because so my sex drive and my libido stayed normal,
Hmm.
which I hear, from my clients can, really go up or really go
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Um, I ended up having bacterial vaginosis for the first time in my life. Never had that before. And oh my God, that's the worst pain I've ever had in my life. Like sandpaper on my labia every time I tried to wipe. It was horrifying. And then people started talking to me about like lichen, the
Oh,
what's the
lichen sclerosis.
yes. And I was like, oh, please don't let that be a thing. Please don't let that be a thing. Um, but I got treatment, I had antibiotics for the
Sure.
BV and I had 2 bouts of it back to back. So that's 8 weeks.
So
And
let me ask you
then,
this:
oh,
were you having painful sex? Is that what led to the workup for BB?
yes.
Okay, so I'm actually happy that you mentioned that, because in addition to some of the changes that can occur hormonally, other causes of painful sex would be like an underlying vaginitis, of which bacterial vaginosis is one. The other common one is yeast, and then there's trichomonas, but that's like a whole nother podcast. But keep going.
Right.
I just
Oh,
wanted to fill the people in.
right. And then also, like losing the vaginal lining, like or getting thinner. Like I'm sure
Yes,
that a lot of people have issues with that as well.
yes.
Um, but yeah, so this was 8 weeks of dealing with that with the antibiotics and then yeast infections after. That was
Mhm.
another 4 weeks from the antibiotics, because that's a
Sure.
lovely gift that you get. Um, so yeah, no hanky panky for 12 weeks because I'm just, going through these changes. And then what I meant to say, or what made it cool that we waited so long to do this, is that I also have found out that Wellbutrin was contributing to my personal vaginal dryness.
Hmm.
So now that I have come off that, it's like a wellspring down there again. It's amazing. Um, and so like I didn't want to share too many like intimate details from my clients, but
Yeah.
these are mine. I feel
Yeah.
like I can go ahead and let you know. So
Thank you
I
for
just
going ahead and letting us know.
yeah, I just feel like I wish that there were more of a holistic outlook on this. I wish that there were more OBGYNs like you who
Mhm.
didn't just kind of stonewall people and say, I mean, you're of a certain age. What are you going to do? I feel like that's not a great answer.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are a lot of contributing factors beyond just the hormone changes.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, you're the doctor here.
Well, there's nothing like experience.
Hmm.
Experience is a good teacher. I'll use a funny analogy. It's like I've been an OBGYN for a long time. I'm kind of old. I am old.
Don't
But
believe it.
for many years, I didn't have children.
Hmm.
I was 37 when I had my daughter. And so for all those years leading up to that, I was an OBGYN without kids. And it's not until you actually experience a pregnancy that you kind of get what your patients are talking about. Because I got
Right.
to tell you, before I was like, oh, back pain, suck that up a little bit. Oh, discharge all the time, par for the course,
Right.
nausea, just, grin and bear it.
Right.
Then it happened to me.
Yeah.
So, this whole thing with menopause, and while I'm like so passionate about it, is because it's where I am now. So then you're going to find this hilarious. Funny thing is, I'm going to say a couple of months ago, and literally this hit me like a bag of bricks, like boom. I was great. And then one weekend, all of a sudden, I woke up in the middle of the night. I ripped off my pajamas. And then the next moment, I was putting all the covers on me. I was laying across the bed, diagonal, feet in my girlfriend's space. And the next morning, she was like, babe, your pajamas are on my side. What is going on? And I was like, I'm burning up. And then I'm like, I can't sleep. And literally, I got up one night because I just was just like that. I was just like on fire.
Mm.
I walked down the hall and I was like, what the heck is the thermometer set on in this place? I walked down all the way down the hall, woke up my daughter, and I'm like, are you hot? And she was like, Mom, are you serious right now? Go to bed. And I was like, I can't, I board certified OBGYN here. It wasn't until a couple of weekends of this, one Monday morning, it just hit me. And I woke up and I said, Ange, how old are you?
Mm-mm.
And so this is
Mhm.
what's really interesting. I didn't go through a typical menopause
Okay.
because I had a surgically induced menopause, meaning I wasn't having periods anymore because I have had my uterus removed
Okay.
for fibroids. So I haven't
Mhm.
had a period in like years, but I still have ovaries.
Right.
And it took me a little bit of time. I was like, okay, Ange, how old are you?
Mm.
You are in, excuse the expression, you are in fucking menopause. And
Yup.
so luckily, once I finally recognized what was going on, I was like, let me call my girl, my partner, who is my physician. I said, I need some vitamin E, estrogen,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I need to cope with this.
Right.
So, part of, why I wanted to do this with you is just recognizing the symptoms
Mhm.
and just really also knowing that this isn't something that you have to just suffer through. There's
Mhm.
tons of options that are available. My only saving grace is that I happen to know them because this is what I do for a living. But I just want women to know, number one, that you're not alone. You're not going crazy.
Mhm.
It isn't just happening to you. And we need to foster communities where we can share, you know, these kinds of stories so people feel like it's a safe space,
Right.
you know?
But also just like not have those feelings and those actual phenomena that are happening written off as like a mental
Yes,
health thing or a, oh, well, you're of a certain age thing. It's like, okay,
exactly.
cool. I'm of a certain age. Fantastic. What can you do to help me?
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
you're not crazy, you're not just making this up.
Mm-mm.
There's nothing worse than being gaslit.
Oh, and man, like the women that I know that are at that level that have already gone through menopause, like,
Mhm.
yeah, that is their story. Like going to work in like four different layers
Yeah,
because you know that you're going to have to strip at some point and then you're going to have to put back on at some point.
yeah.
And that stinks. That shouldn't be like how it has to be. So, yay, I'm glad you exist.
Oh, so you are the intimacy expert.
Right.
Let's talk about how that changes in this phase of life. First of all, I would really love for you, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people think that sex and intimacy are the same thing, and they're clearly
Yeah.
not. So I'm gonna
Complex
have you
conception.
elaborate on that a little bit.
Right. So I actually have like courses that I teach sometimes on this because I like to work off the wheel of consent and
Sure.
talking about how intimacy can look and how sex can look.
Yes.
And both of them actually change as you age, as you get into comfort zones in relationships, right? And
Mhm.
I really, really hate this uh constant definition in our society that sex equals penis in vagina sex, because for a
Right.
lot of people it does not,
Mhm.
simply based on their anatomy. Like, somebody doesn't have a vagina or a penis in the couple, there you go. um
And
and
preference.
right, right.
Right, right.
And so, I really shy away from that. Also, sex for a lot of people that I work with is the easy part. It
Mhm.
is the intimacy that is lacking. The intimacy is remaining connected
Mhm.
with your partner. It's staying interested and intrigued by your
Mhm.
partner. And it is finding those moments of true and guttural human
Mhm.
connection. Sex is, kind of like the cherry on top of having someone you can be intimate with and you can
Mhm.
trust enough
Mhm.
that you can then develop that safety zone
Yeah.
and that consensual interaction,
Mhm.
and then go ahead and build on that into something that feels good and
Mhm.
feels good all over different parts of your body and
Yeah.
doesn't just have to mean thrusting inside a vagina.
Right.
For heaven's sake, because we are made of erogenous zones. Like, explore them, for heaven's
Yeah.
sake. There is more than one. And like I said, I mean, the outside of, our parts, the vulva, the clitoris, like that's
Mhm.
where the action is. Going up inside, I mean, it's not as interesting as it's made up to be. I don't know. At least for the sex part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that this phase of life forces you to do is, number one, hopefully it opens up the lines of communication between you and your partner.
Mhm.
Because certainly what used to feel good may no longer feel great.
Mhm.
Um, and it's also an opportunity to talk about the whys.
Mhm.
I mean, I have a partner, I have a girlfriend.
Mhm.
So she has the same parts as I do, obviously. So
Right.
that's pretty
Convenient.
easy. Yeah, convenient. That's
I
pretty
mean,
easy.
but just because you have the same parts doesn't mean
Hmm.
that you like the same stimulation.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that your favorite thing is her favorite thing.
Hmm.
So, it it
It's being able to
it
have those
it levels the
conversations.
playing field a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, it is having those conversations, and it is being open to trying things
Hmm.
and being aware enough. And yeah, we are at that age. Like, Jenny, 20, 25, 30 years old or whatever, she had nothing on the sexual prowess of Jenny at 43. No, no, no. Because I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I'm not afraid to say, I want a toy in the bedroom. I don't know how to have an orgasm with just penetration. I
Hmm.
have no idea. It has never been a thing.
Hmm.
So why do I have to act like I do? So that's the
Yeah.
thing that I talk to my clients about when they come in. And there's a lot of things that have to do with things other than sex. When they
Hmm.
come in with an issue about
Sure.
sex, there's some other stuff going on. And there's a lot of times that I'll refer out to an actual, a counselor, a
Sure.
psychologist, a social worker, what have you. Um, but if it is something that I feel that I am okay to engage with in a coaching experience, and they just want to work on
Mhm.
like this one thing that's going
Sure.
awry, I do start with okay, well, how about we practice in intimacy before we practice in sex? What if we practice a little bit in consensual pleasure? So there's this,
How do you get people to practice in intimacy?
um, well, so there's this there's this one exercise that I really like to do with new clients
Mhm.
just to see how comfortable they are
Sure.
exploring each other.
Mhm.
And it's the 3-minute game. And you each get a turn to hold the other person's hand up to their elbow
Mhm.
in whichever fashion you desire. This is from the Wheel of Consent.
Okay.
And the School of Consent website has lots of options that you can practice on your own. Like, you don't have to go out and hire a coach for these things.
Mhm.
But the School of Consent is an excellent place to start if you're trying to ignite or reinitiate the intimacy that has kind
Mhm.
of gone awry in your relationship. So anyway, so you get 3 minutes to explore your partner's arm, and you do it in their terms. So they say, "Oh, I only want you to touch up to my wrist because my elbows are dry right now. I don't want you to touch them." Or, "I only want you to play with my fingertips, but don't touch my pinky because it hurts today." And you learn to really listen to what your partner is saying about how they want to be touched.
Mhm.
There's another game of just listening, just
Mhm.
active listening, right? You get each, and you can set these at different
Sure.
times. It's really up to your preference, but you can do 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, what have you. One person gets to talk, the other person gets to listen.
Mhm.
The person talking says, how do you want the other person to respond? Do you want them to nod? Do you want them to, oh, mm-hmm, but they don't
Mhm.
get to comment and they don't get to judge. And
Okay.
at the end of it, the person who's listening says, thank you for sharing that with me.
Mhm.
And the person who did all the talking says, you're welcome. And then you switch and you work on this because relating to each other is a skill. It's a skill. And even if you had it at the beginning of a 15, 20-year relationship,
Mhm.
it can go away. Kids happen, work happens, stress happens. It is so stressful to exist right now,
Oh, that's like the
financially.
understatement of the century.
Yeah, financially, politically, societally, there's so much pressure, so much. If you have a person that you're with, that you've connected with, and you've tried to build this life with,
Mhm.
let's try to invest. Like, just invest a little time to see if the two of you can be each other's safe haven, you know?
Yeah.
So those are the things that I would work on if I were trying to increase the intimacy. Because I do want to make that delineation because people do automatically think intimacy equals sex. Sex always equals intimacy. It's like, no, 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 no. You can be intimate with your partner a
Yeah.
million ways,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to involve any kind of sex.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
I'm really happy that you clarified that because certainly this whole transitional phase, it's an opportunity to redefine all of those things.
mhm.
Because perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, there are, you know, I can't even name the vast amount of symptoms and experiences that women go through. And
Oh, right.
it's different for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Between you're tired all the time because you're not sleeping, to sex doesn't feel good anymore because your vagina's dry, and that's
Mhm.
due to decreased estrogen levels, and who wants to do something that hurts, and you're not communicating that, and you're not discovering other options or opportunities for perhaps even enhanced pleasure that has nothing to do with, as you said, what Americans deem the traditional
Mhm.
sex,
Right.
which is penile, vaginal
Right.
penetration.
Right, and in the same order, we do this, perhaps there's a little foreplay at the beginning, but we do this, and then I come, and then you come, and then we're done. And it's like, it doesn't have to mean any of that. It
No.
doesn't have to. It could be an exercise in, let's see how long this feels good. Let's see how long before it starts to feel like this is work or this is hurting me or we
Mhm.
need to take a moment and like not engage right this second, but maybe I'll come back to it and to let that be okay. Like it needs to be okay that like the goal is not ejaculation or orgasm.
Mhm.
let's drop that expectation and make it so that just being with each other and near each other and sharing this moment can be what sex means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that, like, for me, I have really amazing women in my life. Like, I have aunts that are in their 80s that are just fabulous.
Nice.
They're beautiful, they're bold, and they just say whatever is on their mind. And I like this to be like kind of an opportunity for women to be able to do that. I don't want women to dread menopause, postmenopause, because frankly, I think that can be some of the best years of your life.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
me, I don't want to go back to being 20 and 30. I'm
Mm-mm.
living my best life
Right.
right now because I am now emboldened. Like you said, I can tell you exactly what I like. I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you how I like it,
Mm-hmm. Where to
and
go, where to stop. Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It's women. I think that this phase in your life is an opportunity for women to really kind of just come into their own truth.
Yeah.
One of the things about being honestly in postmenopause is I give no fucks. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
said that on the podcast.
Oh, I fucking
And
love
that's
it.
empowering.
Yeah.
And certainly a lot of the changes that women experience, whether it's weight gain, whether it's more painful sex, I just want there to be a platform to be able to discuss these things because
Mm-hmm.
there are so many options, or at least things that we can throw out. Maybe this will work for you. Try
Mm-hmm.
these things. I love when women get together and they're like, oh, well, you know, my doctor tried to give me hormone replacement therapy. I didn't want that, but these are some other things that worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just to create a platform. Sex used to hurt, but my doctor gave me some estrogen for my vagina, or I tried some hyaluronic acid capsules, or I tried some coconut oil or olive oil, and now it's like the bomb.com. So
Right.
I just want people to just not be afraid to talk about this.
And not be afraid to ask.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like the whole name of your show.
right.
But yeah, just not be afraid to ask or not think that it's within your right to ask because sexual pleasure is a right. Absolutely a right. I'm sorry, but read some Adrienne Marie Brown, pleasure activism. She will tell you, or they will tell you right up, like, yes, it is a right. The clitoris was made for pleasure. It is the only organ that is on a human being that is made for pleasure, and we have them. Now, how are we going to ignore that? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And another piece of this that I've found is that with people who are perimenopausal and menopausal and postmenopausal, they also are coming into their own for the first time, and maybe it's the only time that they've felt safe to do it, or maybe it's the changing of the times, I'm not really sure, but I've had several clients who are realizing that they are asexual. Like, it's not even that they are upset that their
Sure.
bodies are not, like, working with them, they're like, I think that for the longest time, I was doing this because I thought I had to. Like,
Yeah.
my job was to get married, make babies, do the
Yeah.
things. And now they're like, I'm not even interested in this. And I'm like, that's great that you can go ahead and own that. Own that
Yeah.
for the rest of your life. If that is
Yeah.
what you're feeling, if it feels like it was a put on that you had to perform, don't perform, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that this age range is where that clicks.
Yeah. It's important for people to be able to just embrace whoever you are,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Dang right.
So I got to ask you this. How did you get into this line of work? What moved you to this place? I'm curious.
So getting separated and divorced. I was so it was let's see, a month before the lockdown that
Hmm.
my husband told me, I don't love you. I never loved you. I've been faking it to make it for 11 years and it's killing me. Pieces, right? I've got a son with nonverbal autism and a daughter, and I was a stay-at-home military wife for those
Okay.
11 years. And about a year after that speech and, our subsequent separation, I had done work in the school systems as like an aide for autism classrooms. It was really hard to go do that for work and then come home and do it at night and weekend,
Mhm.
And so I started exploring different paths of like, what can I do that's like, I create the schedule and it's about something that I'm passionate about. And
Sure.
it was actually my ex's cousin who was like, you know what you should do? You should be a sex coach. And I was like, that's a thing. And she said, yeah, it's a thing. And you should be one because you're the person that like everybody feels comfortable talking
Mhm.
about like whatever
Sure.
with. And that is what led me to find the Sexual Health Alliance. And what is awesome about the Sexual Health Alliance is that they don't only certify coaches and sex educators, they actually are a body that can give you CEUs if you are a therapist,
Hmm.
psychologist,
Sure.
or psychiatrist who's going to get a sex certified. So they gave me some really great training, and this is what I'm doing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I can see that you're pretty easy to talk to.
Yay. I hope so.
Yay! No, no, like for real, for real.
Yeah,
I
and
think that's important.
I just love it so much. I love helping people understand that what they're going through is, totally natural and that they don't have to feel bad, they don't have to feel embarrassed. Um and there's lots of other subjects that you talk about when you're certified. You can talk to people about their sexuality, about their gender,
Sure.
um having issues with uh trying to figure out what they are, because
Hmm.
maybe you haven't been given that freedom
Sure.
to explore that. Different kinks and interests, things like that.
Sure.
And just being able to have like that non-judgmental person who can talk to you about those things and maybe give you a little guidance. Yep.
Wowzers. So let me ask you this. What does a workshop of yours look like? Like if somebody wants to take a workshop, how do we sign up for your workshop?
Okay.
How often do you have workshops?
Right now, because I'm back in school,
Hmm.
I am not doing them nearly as much
Sure.
online. There's one that I'm working on actually for women over 40 who are re-entering the dating scene. So that's what I'm working on right now. And if you are interested in signing up for the wait list, you can just DM me on Instagram. That's where I do most of my interacting with people. So if you want to, it's just at the Intimacy Ally. And if you were to come to, or rather, I do workshops that are online right
Hmm.
now. So generally, you just sign up on Eventbrite, and then you would show up online. And the last one that I did was for learning how to incorporate fantasy for couples.
Hmm.
So that was Fantasy and Role Play 101. It was about a 2-hour presentation, and then we had a 45-minute discussion afterward. Yep. And that was pretty much how that went. And you just got to explore different kinds of kinks. And it touched on two of my great loves because my bachelor's is actually in theater performance. So I combined my love of theater
Right,
and my
right.
love of
That's
sex
great.
terminology and just helped everybody. And so, you had like a character sheet and you learned a little bit of how to have some hot talk
Sure.
and explored a couple of, themes that people have for fantasy. So that's how that one
Sure.
went. Right now, we're looking at doing the uh, making online dating magical for over 6 weeks. It would be like a
Hmm.
1-hour meeting every week.
Hmm.
But the sign up sheet for that is still just getting together. So that's why you would DM me if you were interested. Yep.
Let me ask you this. Do you encounter this a lot? One of the things that I hear commonly in my postmenopausal population, and not all women, but a fair share of them, they're like, I just no desire to have sex anymore.
Yeah.
None. Like,
Hmm.
what do you do for those clients? What do you offer to those clients?
So I am a firm believer in sex toys
Mhm.
for everyone. And that, so that's men and women. And I'm very lucky in my colleagues that I know some of the wonderful distributors that are putting out quality products.
Mhm.
Um, so I usually direct people who have no interest to talk to their partners about what would it be like if maybe I could be in the room when you perform self pleasure. And what I've found is that the person who is not having any desire, once you are in the room with this person who you are still very interested in,
Mhm.
who is pleasuring themselves, a little of your desire might creep back in.
That's a really interesting concept.
Mhm.
Who knew? See, this is why we have you on the show.
Right?
Right.
But yeah,
Right,
I would
because it
say
is a huge turn on to see someone that you love,
someone that you
you
love
know?
getting pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's actually called compersion in my line of work. It's a very popular theory in polyamory
Mhm.
and with people who are open to having other people involved in their
Sure.
love lives because you are not involved in the pleasure, but you are
Mhm.
observing the pleasure and then
Right.
that brings you pleasure and it's like how is this happening? But it is. Yeah. So
Huh.
that's what I would recommend. I would
Okay.
recommend everyone who is in these ages and stages
Mhm.
get good and comfortable with admitting that a little help is awesome and that
Yeah.
toys are fun and exciting. And yes, it might be awkward to have them out when the kids are around or something, but like, when they're away, when you have a break,
Mhm.
then go ahead and explore.
The other thing that I find is, I'm like, that vulva, that
Mhm.
clitoris,
Mhm.
those belong to you.
Mhm.
Touch them,
Mhm.
like feel them. I'm
Yes.
amazed. I'm sometimes blown away at the number of women that I meet that just don't do any kind of self-pleasure.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm a firm believer. I'm like anything that
Mhm.
will get that blood flow back into the vulva, the clitoris, get that, the vagina.
Yeah.
You got to keep your girlfriend
Oh
going.
yeah.
If you
Oh
don't
yeah.
use if you don't use it, you lose it. I'm like a
Yeah.
huge so but I think that people knowing, it's okay to touch yourself.
Right. I like to recommend to a lot of my clients that they read Dr. Lori Mintz and Dr. Betty Dodson.
Okay.
Um uh those are two of my heroes, I guess. Have you heard of them?
No, you just put me
No.
on.
All right. Lori Mintz is all about closing the pleasure gap and she actually gives a
How do you spell her
tutorial.
name?
Uh
L-O or L-A-U?
Laurie, and
Mhm.
then the last name is Mintz, Mintz.
Okay.
And she actually gives like a tutorial in her book on how to pleasure yourself if you never have. So getting the Audible version might be kind of helpful. Just saying. It's her book that I love to recommend is called Becoming Clitorate.
Huh.
Mhm. And then Betty Dodson, she was not I guess she got her PhD, I think, because she had talked about these issues so many times. I don't think that she was like an actual psychologist.
Mhm.
Um, Betty Dodson is the creator of Body Sex, which is all about self pleasure. And it's
Mhm.
like these women in circles performing self pleasure. And she's the one who created like the wand vibrator. Um, she passed away in 2020, but she was still going around doing these groups and
So
advocating and
she
teaching
created the
women.
wand.
Uh-huh. She was teaching women how to appreciate their vaginas and their vulvas and how to tell what's the difference. She was on
Thank
like the
you.
Gwyneth Paltrow like Goop or whatever, like straightening her out about what you call what at like 87 years old. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what's cool about Betty is, and she's like my hero. She grew up, very poor in like Wichita, Kansas. And she was like, the best things that my mother ever did, like, and my mother was uneducated and, poor, what have you. She
Sure.
didn't smack my hand when I touched myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like so many people grew up that way. Girls do not have that freedom that boys have. Boys, it's like, oh, your brother's in his room. Don't go in there because you don't know what he's doing. We don't have that freedom, or a lot of us didn't have that freedom growing up. So then you get to this age, and like you said, if you're not interested in doing it with someone else, you might not even have the skill or the knowledge of how to do it to yourself. It's another reason why coaches come into play. Just to let you know, we can help you with that. We are not shy, and we are ready to tell you that an orgasm a day keeps a lot of doctors away. No offense, but an orgasm a day is amazing. It does amazing things for your hormones, for your brain activity, for your heart. Like, there's so many reasons why it's a great idea.
Mind.
Yeah. To feel sexy, to feel good. Like, legit, it's just to feel good. Have an orgasm a day. Come on now. It's better than an apple. There's no sugar. It's fantastic.
You said there's no sugar. Now that's funny.
No sugar. So, yeah, those are two people that I would highly recommend everyone look into.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to look into that. So, Jenny, do this for me, because I got to go grab my kid. I am the mom of a 14-year-old. Let us know where we can find you on Instagram, your website, like the whole thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's on Instagram. It is at The Intimacy Ally. You can also listen to my podcast. It is Story Time with The Intimacy Ally. You can find that pretty much anywhere. And if you are interested in signing up for the course that's coming out in April, that is Making Online Dating Magical, go ahead and shoot me a DM. You can also email me. It's theintimacyally@gmail.com.
Wowzers.
Yep.
So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for being on. You are like a wealth of information. I appreciate your candor, your energy, and you're just easy.
Yeah.
I can see why people would certainly feel comfortable coming to you with these kinds of topics. I appreciate you having this kind of conversation with me about something that affects all of us at some point in our lives, and just being willing to be a part of a conversation that should be ongoing. This is not the end. It should be ongoing. So just, thank you, and thank you again. So as per usual, I'm going to sign off with some word of inspiration from one of the many books that I have on my desk. And this one comes from Life's Little Instruction book that I got when I graduated from college many, 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 many years ago. And it's lesson 304, and it says, judge your success by the degree that you are enjoying peace, health, and love. I am all about choosing happiness. Just choose happy is what I tell my patients when they leave the exam room every time. Choose happy, whatever that means for you. So thank you all for listening to this episode of the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Ask Dr. Angela. My website is www.askdrangela.com. That's AskDrangela.com. I am open to questions, suggestions for podcast topics. But until next time, make sure that you choose happiness. And I cannot wait to continue the Menopause series. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears open.
Thank you for listening to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. For more information on women's health and the show notes for this episode, please visit Dr. Angela at www.askdrangela.com. While you're there, don't forget to leave your own message for Dr. Angela. See you soon. All of the information provided and discussed in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not take the place of consulting a physician. This podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease or illness and does not and should not replace treatment from a medical professional. Listening to and participating in this podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship between you and Dr. Angela Jones. If you need medical advice or assistance, you should consult a physician. Listening to and participating in this podcast is subject to the terms and conditions posted at AskDrAngela.com/terms.